I have seen a lot in my 42 years on the bench. I have watched people lie to my face, cry crocodile tears, and try every trick in the book to dodge responsibility. I have seen grown men weep over parking tickets, and millionaires try to buy their way out of a misdemeanor. But sometimes the difference between life and death is measured in seconds. And on the afternoon of October 7th, 2023, a little girl almost died because a 24-year-old man decided that his convenience mattered more than a child's heartbeat. That man was Garrett Ashford IV, son of State Senator Richard Ashford, and he walked into my Providence courtroom on November 3rd at exactly 10:15 a.m., thinking his last name would save him. It did not. You think you have heard stories about entitled people getting what they deserve. Trust me, you have not heard anything like what I am about to tell you. Hit that subscribe button right now because this story is going to make you furious, and then it is going to make you stand up and cheer. Let me take you back to how this whole thing started. The case file on my desk was thicker than most. Case number 2023-TR-6614, reckless endangerment, obstruction of emergency services, and resisting citation. The defendant was Garrett Ashford IV, age 24, unemployed, listed residence as his father's estate in Barrington, Rhode Island, assessed value $4.7 million, waterfront property, no job, no degree he ever finished, 2 prior DUIs that had mysteriously been reduced to traffic infractions. The complainant was a man named Luis Heiress, age 51, a paramedic with the Providence Fire Department, Station 7, badge number EMS 3318. Now, before I tell you what Garrett Ashford did, I need you to understand who Luis Heiress is, because this story does not make sense unless you know the kind of man who was on the other side of it. Luis Heiress had been a paramedic for 23 years. 23 years of riding in the back of an ambulance through every neighborhood in this city, every hour of the day and night, in snowstorms and heat waves and everything in between. Before that, he served 2 combat tours in Afghanistan with the 1st Battalion, 8th Infantry, 4th Infantry Division. He earned a Purple Heart after taking shrapnel to his left leg outside Kandahar in 2004. He still walks with a slight limp on cold mornings, but he never once used it as an excuse to miss a shift, not once in 23 years. His supervisors told me he had not called in sick a single time since 2009. Luis made $22.35 an hour. He picked up overtime whenever the department offered it because his wife, Angela, had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 6 years earlier. The medications alone cost over $4,800 a month, even after insurance. Their daughter, Sophia, was 14, an honor roll student at Classical High School. Their son, Miguel, was 11, and played Little League at the field on Atwells Avenue. Luis drove a 2011 Ford F-150 with 187,000 miles on it. He kept it clean, kept it running, and never complained. Angela told me later that he would come home from a 16-hour shift, kiss her on the forehead, check the kids' homework, and set his alarm for 5 hours later to do it all again. When Luis Heiress walked into my courtroom, I could see it all in him before he said a word. He wore a clean button-down shirt, tucked in, pressed carefully, the kind of shirt a man irons himself on a Sunday night. His shoes were brown leather, polished but cracked along the sides, the kind of cracks that come from years of wear by a man who takes care of what he has. His tie was knotted with military precision, tight and centered, the way they teach you in the service and you never forget. His hands were rough, the hands of a man who works, and they were folded in his lap, back straight, chin up. He sat there with the quiet dignity of someone who has earned every single thing he has ever had in this life and never been given a shortcut. If you have ever worked a double shift to pay a medical bill, if you have ever held someone you love and felt terrified about the future, then please subscribe to this channel. We are a family here, and we fight for people like Luis. Join us now. On the afternoon of October 7th, 2023, at approximately 4:47 p.m., Luis Heiress and his partner, a paramedic named Jackie Torres, badge number EMS 3421, received a priority dispatch call. A 6-year-old girl named Emma Sloan had gone into severe anaphylactic shock at a birthday party on Elm Grove Avenue on the east side. Her throat was closing. She could not breathe. The party host had administered an EpiPen, but Emma was not responding. Her mother was on the phone with 911, screaming. The dispatcher coded it as a code 3, lights and sirens, life-threatening emergency. Luis and Jackie were 4 minutes out. They arrived at 4:51 p.m. And when they pulled onto Elm Grove Avenue and turned toward the Sloan residence, the ambulance bay at the private urgent care clinic next door, the only access point wide enough for the ambulance to get close to the house, was completely blocked. A $142,000 matte black Mercedes AMG G63, custom wheels, tinted windows, vanity plates reading Gash 4, was parked diagonally across the ambulance bay. Not parallel, not pulled to one side, diagonally, like the driver had slid in there without a thought in the world about what that space was for. Luis hit the horn, hit it again, hit the lights. No one came out. Jackie radioed dispatch to report the obstruction while Luis jumped out, grabbed the medical bag, and started running on foot. He ran 130 yards on a bad left leg, carrying 40 pounds of equipment to reach that little girl. 130 yards. With shrapnel still embedded in his calf from a war he fought for this country. He reached Emma Sloan, administered epinephrine, and stabilized her airway with less than 2 minutes to spare. The attending physician at Rhode Island Hospital later told investigators that if Luis had arrived 90 seconds later, Emma Sloan would almost certainly have died. 90 seconds. That is how close it was. Because someone parked in an ambulance bay. While Luis was saving Emma's life, Jackie radioed Providence PD. Officer Tanya Briggs, badge number 5537, arrived on scene at 5:02 p.m. and ran the plates on the Mercedes. The vehicle was registered to Garrett Ashford IV. Officer Briggs found him inside the urgent care clinic's waiting area. He was not there for a medical emergency. He was not picking someone up. He was sitting in the lobby scrolling through his phone, waiting for a friend who worked at the front desk to finish her shift. That was it. That was the reason. He had parked a $142,000 SUV in an ambulance bay, so he would not have to walk an extra block. When Officer Briggs informed him of the situation and began writing a citation, Garrett Ashford looked at her and said something that I have not been able to get out of my head since I first read the transcript. He said, "Do you have any idea who my father is? He will have your badge before you finish writing that ticket. And that ambulance driver can find somewhere else to park. It is not my problem some kid cannot breathe." Let me say that again. This man, this 24-year-old who has never worked a day in his life, told a police officer that a 6-year-old child's inability to breathe was not his problem. And then he threatened her career because she had the nerve to hold him accountable. Officer Briggs, to her everlasting credit, did not flinch. She finished writing the citation. Garrett Ashford ripped it in half, dropped the pieces on the ground, got in his Mercedes, and peeled out of the parking lot. Officer Briggs documented everything. Dashcam confirmed it all. She filed her report that evening and forwarded it to the city prosecutor. Within 48 hours, Senator Ashford's office called the Providence Police Department. The chief at the time, a man named Frank DeLuca, got the call personally. Someone wanted the citation to go away. But Frank DeLuca was old school, a 30-year cop, a man who came up through the ranks the hard way. He looked at the file, looked at the dashcam footage, and told the senator's office that the case would proceed. He backed Officer Briggs 100%. But here is where it gets really interesting. Are you still with me? Before I go any further, drop a comment and tell me what you think happens next. And if you believe that no one is above the law, not even a senator's son, hit that like button right now. Because what happened in my courtroom changes everything. When Garrett Ashford walked into court on November 3rd, I could smell the entitlement before he sat down. He was wearing a Tom Ford suit, navy blue, the kind that runs about $4,200 off the rack, but this one looked custom, so probably closer to $6,000. On his wrist was a Rolex Submariner, the two-tone gold model, at least $45,000. His shoes were Berluti, that deep polished leather that catches the light, easily $2,000. He had gold cufflinks. He had a silk pocket square, and he had a private attorney from a firm in Boston who walked in carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Luis Reyes makes in a month. They sat down on the defendant's side like they were at a dinner reservation, not a courtroom hearing. Luis Reyes sat in the gallery in his pressed button-down, his polished, cracked shoes, his military precision tie, hands folded, back straight. He did not look at Garrett Ashford. He did not need to. His dignity spoke for itself. The evidence was presented methodically. Officer Briggs testified clearly and professionally. The dashcam footage was played. Luis testified about the call, the blocked bay, the 130-yard run, the 90-second margin. His voice was steady, controlled, the voice of a man who has testified before and does not need theatrics to tell the truth. His voice cracked once, just slightly, when he described reaching Emma and seeing her face turning blue. He paused, composed himself, and continued. That moment said more than any lawyer's argument ever could. Then Garrett Ashford's attorney stood up to speak. But Garrett pushed him back down, literally put his hand on the man's shoulder and said, "I got this." His attorney closed his eyes for a second. I have seen that look before. It is the look of a lawyer who knows his client is about to set himself on fire. Garrett stood up and addressed me directly. He told me the whole thing was an overreaction. Said the ambulance bay was not clearly marked. The dash cam showed it was marked with 12-inch red letters and reflective paint. He said he was only there for a few minutes. The timestamp showed 47 minutes. He said his father had already spoken with someone about having this resolved, and he did not understand why we were wasting the court's time. Then he looked at Luis, sitting there in the gallery, and said, "That guy is a paramedic, not a surgeon. He drives a truck. He could have found another way around. People at my father's level do not get dragged into court over parking." The courtroom went dead silent. That kind of silence where you can hear the ventilation system humming and someone 3 rows back shifting in their chair. My bailiff, Carl, 6'4", former Marine, 20 years by my side, took one step forward without being asked. Even Garrett's attorney put his face in his hands. I felt my jaw tighten. My father's voice was in the back of my mind. My father, God rest his soul, an Italian immigrant who drove a taxi and opened a small grocery store on Federal Hill, used to tell me, "Arrogance is fear in a fancy suit." I have never forgotten that. Looking at Garrett Ashford in his Tom Ford jacket with his gold cufflinks and his Rolex, I thought my father could not have been more right. But Garrett was not finished digging his grave. He reached into his jacket. Carl stepped forward again. Eddie, my other bailiff, also former Marine, moved to the side door. But Garrett did not pull a weapon. He pulled a phone. He held it up and said, "I am calling my father right now. He will have this thrown out by lunch." I said, "Mr. Ashford, put that phone away. You are in my courtroom." He looked at me and said, "Your courtroom does not scare me, Judge. My father built half the buildings in this state." Now here is where this story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Tell me what you would do sitting in my chair right now. What happened next is something I will never forget in all my years on this bench. My clerk, Dorothy, 19 years by my side and steady as a rock, handed me a folded note. I opened it. I read it. I read it again. The Rhode Island State Police had executed a search warrant on Garrett Ashford's Mercedes that morning in connection with a separate ongoing investigation. In the custom storage compartment of the G63, they found a Glock 19 with the serial number filed off, 14 grams of cocaine in a monogrammed leather case, and $38,000 in cash bundled in rubber bands. State police detectives were in the courthouse hallway at that very moment, waiting to take him into custody the moment my proceedings concluded. The arrogance drained from Garrett Ashford's face like water through a sieve. First confusion, then realization, then fear. His attorney grabbed his arm and started whispering urgently. Garrett pulled away, but this time his hands were shaking. The Rolex on his wrist was trembling. If you have stuck with me this long, you are amazing. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already, because what comes next is the moment every single person in that courtroom was waiting for. I set Dorothy's note down. I folded my hands. I looked at Garrett Ashford, and I spoke slowly and clearly, because I wanted him to remember every word for the rest of his life. "Mr. Ashford, I am fining you $35,000. Every penny of that fine will go directly to the Providence Fire Department's Emergency Medical Fund, specifically earmarked for equipment, training, and family support for paramedics like Luis Reyes, who put their lives on the line while people like you treat their service as an inconvenience. His attorney started to object. I raised my hand. I am not finished. You will perform 600 hours of community service. You will ride along with EMS crews out of Station 7, Luis Reyes' station, for every single one of those hours. You will clean the ambulances. You will restock the medical kits. You will sit in the back on calls and watch what these men and women do for $22 an hour, while you spend more than that on a single pocket square. You will do it in civilian clothes. No designer labels, no family name, no cufflinks. You will learn what it means to serve someone other than yourself. Furthermore, your license is suspended for 12 months effective immediately, and I am recommending the maximum penalties under Rhode Island statute for obstruction of emergency services and reckless endangerment. You blocked an ambulance bay, Mr. Ashford. A 6-year-old girl almost died. 90 seconds. That was the margin. And you sat in a lobby scrolling your phone while a combat veteran with shrapnel in his leg ran 130 yards to save her life. You told a police officer that a child's inability to breathe was not your problem. You told this court that people at your father's level do not get dragged into court over parking. Let me tell you something, young man. In my courtroom, there are no levels. There is the law, and the law does not care who your father is. The courtroom erupted. Applause from the gallery. Luis Reyes was not clapping. He was sitting with his hands still folded, his eyes wet, nodding once, just once, slowly. That quiet dignity I told you about, it never left him. Officer Briggs, sitting 3 rows back in her dress uniform, wiped her eyes. Emma Sloan's mother, who had driven from East Providence to be there, was sobbing openly. Garrett Ashford's attorney was trying to talk to him, but Garrett was staring at the floor. The arrogance was gone. The Tom Ford suit was just cloth now. The Rolex was just metal. As Garrett was led from the courtroom by his attorney, 2 Rhode Island State Police detectives stepped through the side door. One of them said, "Garrett Ashford, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent." They handcuffed him in the hallway. His gold cufflinks clicked against the metal. I could hear it from the bench. His father, Senator Richard Ashford, was not there. He had sent his son into my courtroom alone. That tells you everything you need to know about the kind of man the senator is. Smash that like button if you believe justice should be blind to power and privilege. This story is not over. 5 months later, Garrett Ashford pleaded guilty to felony weapons possession, possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute, and obstruction of emergency services. He was sentenced to 4 years in state prison. His father, Senator Ashford, did not attend the sentencing. 3 weeks after that, a Providence Journal investigation revealed that the senator's office had intervened in Garrett's 2 prior DUI cases, pressuring local prosecutors to reduce the charges. The senator announced he would not seek re-election. He resigned from his committee assignments by the end of the year. Luis Reyes received a commendation from the Providence fire chief for his actions on October 7th. The city awarded him the Medal of Valor at a ceremony in January. His partner Jackie Torres received one too. The Providence Firefighters Union set up a fund for Angela Reyes's medical expenses, and the community raised $61,000 in 3 weeks. Angela started a new treatment protocol that spring. She told a reporter it was the first time in years she felt hopeful. Emma Sloan made a full recovery. Her mother started a nonprofit called 90 Seconds that advocates for stricter enforcement of ambulance bay parking violations across Rhode Island. They got a bill introduced in the state legislature. It passed unanimously. Officer Tanya Briggs was promoted to sergeant. When they pinned the new badge on her, she said, "I was just doing my job." That is exactly what she said. Just doing my job. The 4 most powerful words a person in uniform can say. I think about that case more than most. I think about it when I am sitting in my chambers early in the morning, before the docket starts, drinking my coffee and turning my rosary in my hands. I think about Luis Reyes, running 130 yards on a leg full of shrapnel. I think about Officer Briggs standing there while a senator's son threatened her career and not flinching. I think about a 6-year-old girl who almost did not make it home from a birthday party. 90 seconds. That is all that separated tragedy from a miracle. And the only reason we got the miracle is because a man who makes $22 an hour refused to let anything stop him from doing what he swore to do. My father used to tell me, the measure of a man is not what he has. It is how he treats people who have nothing. Luis Reyes had every reason to be bitter. He was underpaid. His wife was sick. His leg hurt every morning. And he ran. He ran for a child he had never met because that is who he is. That is the measure of a man. To anyone watching this who has inherited power, inherited wealth, inherited a name that opens doors, I am not telling you those things are bad. I am telling you they come with a responsibility. Use them to help. Use them to protect. Do not use them to convince yourself that the rules are for other people, because they are not. The law does not read last names. To anyone out there who feels invisible, who works the night shift, who drives the ambulance, who answers the call, who shows up every single day and never hears thank you, I see you. Luis Reyes sees you. This courtroom sees you. And you matter more than any title or trust fund or last name on a ballot. Do not ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. If you believe in real justice, I am asking you to do 3 things for me. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a story like this. Leave a comment and tell me about a first responder in your life who deserves to hear thank you. A paramedic, a firefighter, a nurse, someone who shows up when the rest of us are calling for help. And watch the next video, where a billionaire CEO tries to have a homeless veteran arrested for saluting the American flag outside his building. That one is going to break your heart and then put it back together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that justice is not just a word, it is a promise. And I keep my promises.